So welcome to Vox Pop episode 9. We've got quite a treat for you this episode. We're going slightly off topic. We've been talking about lockdowns and vaccine passports and all that exciting stuff which has been happening over the last 18 months and everyone's getting totally sick of. But one of the many other things that is worrying a lot of people at the moment, and certainly people I'm sure that listen to this podcast, is the continual and unstemmed tide of illegal immigration, which this country has been experiencing for many years now. And this year and last year specifically, a little bit closer to home than an anonymous airport, it's been coming daily over the 22-mile stretch between Calais and Dover and the coast. So I'm very pleased to be able to welcome, I don't think it's an overstatement to say a hero. I'm sure he's blushing as I say this, but Mr. Steve Laws. Welcome, Steve.
You're right there. Cheers. Hero's a bit of a stretch.
Well, you know, I think you'd find there's a lot of people that actually think what you're doing is heroic. I mean, you're not there with a anti-aircraft gun on the White Cliffs, but you're fulfilling a similar requirement, I think, at the moment, because nobody else seems to be doing a great deal. Steve, for those people that don't know who you are and are wondering who the hell am I talking to now, how would I have known you, and how might people have seen you on social media, etc.?
I'm basically, to say it like short and sweet, I'd say I'm the bloke that just films the illegal immigrants coming over, as long with a few others. But I also do like a few articles and cover it. Myself and a few others are largely responsible for the reason why the media cover it now. And that was our main objective when we first started covering it, really, because people didn't know it was happening. And then the more you show it, the more people realise what's going on. And eventually, 18 months down the line, still doing it.
So you've been doing that, have you, for about 18 months? Is that when you started, or is it?
Yeah, give or take, roughly, yeah.
Because I'm trying to think, when I'm a professional sailor, and I sail in the Channel for a fair amount of time, and I was sailing through the Straits of Dover in sort of 2019, and the amount of dinghies coming across then, because it's only a small stretch of water, isn't it? I mean, you can see France from...
Yeah, it's not far at all. 21 miles at its shortest,
yeah.
I think.
So, I mean, when I was going through there, the radio chatter all the time. There was, vessel with 8 persons. They were small dinghies at that time, but there was, on a good day, I would hear 3 or 4 on the VHF.
And here's the thing, in 2019, only 2,900 roughly arrived. It was 2020, 8,500, and this year we're already over 20,000.
Wow.
So it's escalated dramatically since those days.
So
you can imagine how busy it would have seemed then compared to now.
Oh, it must be incredible. I mean, 20,000 people, I mean, that's a decent-sized town, small town of people.
It's outrageous, really, and nobody knows who these people are.
So, I mean, for those people that live on the moon, these people are coming over from the French coast. They're, would you say they're largely from sort of sub-Saharan Africa, or sort of...
It varies, to be honest, because there was a phase where there was loads of people from Vietnam arriving, so it's becoming all over the world now. It's not... It used to be majority African or Middle Eastern, sort of, but as the time's gone on, you're getting all sorts of nationalities arriving now.
So there's obviously a worldwide organisation at play here, isn't there?
It's happening all over Europe, happening all over the world, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, we might perhaps another time, or maybe later, talk about your views on why you think that's happening. But you've had a pretty tough day today. I mean, you've very kindly given me a bit of time tonight. We're talking at sort of 20 to 9 on Thursday, 14th October. You found yourself in court today, didn't you? Do you want to just briefly tell us what it was that was happening and
just explain why and how it ended up there. Well, to summarise, because obviously I filmed the illegal immigrants coming over. I heard there was a beach landing, so I headed down to Shakespeare's Beach, which is not far from where the illegal immigrants come in, the port, sort of. And when I got there was a couple of blokes standing there, and one of them was claiming the boats by salvage rights. So I started filming because I thought, this is interesting. And then I asked for a ride in the back of the dinghy once the border force had give their okay, and they'd called through to their head office and they showed us how to put life jackets on, etc. So then I asked for a ride in the dinghy. We had a ride to the other beach, which was St. Margaret's Bay, which is the other side of Dover, sort of. About half hour it took us in the dinghy to get there. And then we landed. The police was there the other side. They said hello. They didn't say nothing. On we went. And then 2 days later, I got arrested for theft. And then I've been to court 4 times. It's been adjourned 4 times. And then eventually today, I got found guilty for theft of a dinghy.
I mean, did you? So you didn't even? You just had a ride in it. You didn't even. I mean, did you?
No, somebody salvaged it legally. He owns the boat by law. It's his boat.
Right.
Yet we still got found guilty of theft. They're trying to claim that we was tampering with evidence. Yet there was no. The evidence. There was nothing to say that that boat was evidence whatsoever. There was no like cordon. There was no tags. There was no marks. There was nothing whatsoever. It was just an abandoned boat on the beach.
Well, I think I saw the video. I'm pretty sure I saw the video, which is
yeah, I
perhaps,
did have it on social media and stuff.
I think
Police had it as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is incredible. I know you want to be careful how much you actually say about this because you're considering your position at the moment in terms of.
Oh yeah, I'm not decided whether I'm going to appeal it or not yet. I've got solid grounds to, so there is so I won't go into the actual details of the case, but what I've said is pretty much what's happened without going into all the details of statements and things like that.
From my personal view on this, it just stinks to won't want to comment on it, but I mean, it just seems to anybody who hears what you've just said there,
when you consider as well the fact that the people that arrived on these dinghies abandoned them. They had no intention of retrieving these dinghies because their sole intention was to use them to get to the UK. So even if the person came back to say that this boat was theirs, they'd have to admit to smuggling people into the UK, which opens up a whole nother can of worms. And the fact that they've been taken to 4-star hotels, they're probably in houses now, and then I've been persecuted for literally having a ride in a boat that somebody salvaged. It's just nonsense.
Like so many other things that are happening at the moment, it is just total madness. But I mean, and it's pretty obvious, isn't it? You've embarrassed what you're doing and what people like you are doing. I know there's a handful of you, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a few others that do it. Yeah.
So, I mean, what you're doing is embarrassing the government, obviously, and they're doing everything they can, I would suspect, to try and stop you. Seems pretty.
And I feel they don't want people taking the dinghies as well, so they wanted to make sure that was set in law that you can't do that.
I mean, I've seen, in fact, I think it was a photograph that you posted on social media, the dinghy park, if you like, that's stacked up with them. I mean, there's hundreds of dinghies all stacked up, isn't there? In I presume that's in Dover, is it?
Yeah, it's in Whitfield near Dover, yeah, and it's absolutely packed with them. And that's where they take them to be stored because they're meant to be checked for evidence. But let's be honest, they're not going to find anything from them.
Well, what are they going to do? I mean, if the people are here and they're not going to, what's the evidence that they're trying to find? I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's
the whole thing. The more you dig into it, the more ridiculous the whole thing is.
I mean, it is just amazing. I know that your footage on social media is obviously, when you actually see what's happening, you see dozens of people just swarming onto beaches. It's very powerful, and a lot of people, I think, are becoming aware of this, even though I know you've had problems with being censored and what have you. But I think more and more people are seeing it and value what you're doing. Every time you do something like this, and then, I mean, obviously Nigel Farage has got a huge sort of media presence. He sort of latched onto it, didn't he, was it the beginning of this year when he was down there? Can you remember?
I think he covered it last year as well.
Was it last year? It might have been, actually. Yes. Yeah. So
he's got a massive platform, so we appreciate him doing that, really, because none of us have got the platforms like he has. Mine keep getting shut down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he obviously has a huge platform and is a big figure, and I mean, he's an ally, isn't he? At the end of the day, he's supportive of the same things. But I mean, why do you think that when this becomes how should I put this? Basically, every now and again, this comes to a head, and sometimes even the mainstream media have to talk about it, as you say, because you're kind of forcing the issue. But
Yeah.
then the government say they're going to clamp down, and they come out with some wild, wacky scheme. Then nothing happens again. So why do you think that's happening, or not happening, as the case may be?
It's just PR stunts. The government, they until they stop tiptoeing around into the bottom line is until they stop tiptoeing around international treaties, they'll never be able to stop it. And they know that. They know that very clearly. So they will put out false hope to keep people at bay, telling them they're going to do this, and they come up with another solution that isn't really a solution. It's just pushing the problem further down the line. And they just keep doing that. And everyone's eating it up in the media because, let's be honest, unless there's only a few small handful of people in this country that have actually seen it. So unless you're actually one of those people and you've got the reach that, and you can see those people, like a lot of people don't obviously have Twitter, so they won't see my content, for instance. And unless they've seen that, they won't know what's going on. So it's easy for the media to just dance along to the tune.
Yeah, yeah.
It sounds all very like cynical and conspiracy, but it's just that's what's happening.
Well, this is it. I mean, there are lots of people have lots of views on why this is being allowed to happen. I mean, you mentioned international agreements. Are you talking about the UN Migration Compact? Is that the?
Yeah, there's a few that we're signed up to that. Off the top of my head, I haven't got them all, but there's like the UN Migration Pact 9, and then there's the Refugee Convention. There's a few that hold us. They just basically hold us at bay, and we have to take these people. That's why the solution of stopping them without breaking international law is stopping them entering our waters. Because once they get past, we can't get rid of them.
And I mean, from what I've seen that's been reported, and from as I say, I sail, so I've got an AIS app on my phone, so I can see shipping in the channel.
See all the border force vessels and things.
RNLI and border force and even ships now. They've got a small frigate, haven't they, involved? I think.
Yeah, they got Hurricane. It used to be on the wind farm.
Right. I mean, because the pictures that I've seen recently, some of these larger vessels are bringing in. They've obviously recovered people from the channel, and they're bringing in maybe 50, 60 people a time. Was that fair?
Yeah, on average, I'd say that was fair. I'd say.
And how many people come in? How many vessels on a good day when the weather's calm? What would you estimate the number of people to be coming that the authorities know about that are coming into the country?
On a perfect day, after there's been a good cleared couple of days weather before, and there's been a slow, steady increase of numbers, by the time you reach that point, you're looking at roughly anything up to 1,000 people.
Wow. Every day, good day.
That wouldn't be every day. That would be every good day. So that would be one in a week sort of thing. But that's only at the peak of like summer and stuff. Other than that, it'd be more on average. It'd be 400 or 500.
Right. But I mean, that's still one hell of a lot of people, isn't it? I mean, I suppose the good thing is we're coming into the autumn and winter now, so the channel gets a pretty inhospitable place from now on, really. I mean, do you think this year's going to be because the problem I've seen is that you've actually got rescue vessels going into French waters, so as long as
there's no rescuing going on though. This is the problem. They class a rescue as they're struggling at sea. They don't class it as, for instance, how the normal person would perceive it as a rescue. As you're overboard, you're drowning. That's what people assume is a rescue. But in reality, it's just the dinghy's got a little bit of water in it, so they're going to go and get them.
Right. So and
before it becomes a problem, sort of.
Yes, yeah. I mean, so do they? And am I right in thinking that you've got British Border Patrol vessels and the RNLI actually going into or out of British waters into? Well, it would be straight into French waters around there because of the.
Yeah, it works both ways. It works both ways. The French do it and the British do it, and they both go into each other's. They're all talk to each other. They're all fine with it. No one seems to care.
Right.
But in reality, it's a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, I have experience, as I say, I work at sea, and I have been boarded by border force. I've been stopped by border force in the middle of the channel, and had to hand over passports for all of my crew, international crew, tell them who I am, tell them where we're going. All the passports are checked, everything else. That's happened to me 2 or 3 times in the channel.
It's bizarre, isn't it, that all happens to you, yet they don't even ask for any form of identification of illegal immigrants that come over.
And from what I hear, they basically, if they have got ID, but as soon as they get in the dinghies and they're going to be picked up, everything goes over the side so that they can't, because they want to claim
They want us to claim asylum and they
asylum.
want a fresh new start. So you can tell them whoever they are and make it all up.
Primarily what you're doing is filming this and just evidencing what's happening.
Yeah, and just documenting it from my sort of way of doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what? So
I used to be more activist sort of when I started, but that was just so you had to get people to listen. So you had to do things a bit more outrageous. And now I can just cover it normally.
Right. So are you able to just go to the dockside and video, or do they try and stop you?
Well, as it stands, yeah, it's fine now. They're trying to serve us with an injunction, but I can't actually talk about all the details of that because that's still an ongoing case. But they're trying to serve an injunction to ban us from filming at the docks. That'd be me, XXTW, XX on YouTube, Active Patriot, and Little Veteran. So that us four, who have obviously all covered it for a long time, are the ones who are going to be banned from it.
And so
we stand right next to the press, and the press are still fine.
Yeah, there's something very wrong
bizarre,
with this
isn't it?
country. There is something very wrong with it. I mean, it's citizen journalism is a dirty word, isn't it? Because I think the press are bought, and I don't think many people nowadays don't believe that the press aren't totally bought and paid for. I certainly do.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I've seen it in action. I've seen the narrative in action. They'll only take pictures of kids because they know they won't get paid for the bloke, so they don't even bother. So all you're seeing is pictures of kids and women in the papers when they know that that's not the truth. Even the people who took the pictures know it's not the truth, but money pays the bills.
Yeah. I mean, all this stuff just stinks. It really does. But so how do they stop you if you're in public? I mean, are you on private? I mean, presumably British Ports, Associated British Ports, or somebody like that own the dockside.
It's a very grey area between. What's it called? It's a grey area between private and public, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
There is no clear distinction. It's a lorry car park where we film.
Right.
So
I suppose, it might or might not be a public. I mean, it could be owned by Dover Council, presumably, in which case it would be public space, presumably.
It's Dover Harbour Board who actually own it. They're the persons trying to
right
stop us.
So okay.
But I feel like they've had their arm pushed.
Yeah, by the powers that be.
Yeah.
And do you have any problems with the police? Do they? I mean, obviously.
At first, when last year we did, they used to come up. They used to try and stop us film and tell us to move on, take your names, all of this stuff. That used to happen quite frequent. But after a few people they've done it for about a year or so, they've just sort of left us alone when they realised we weren't actually a problem, not a threat or anything like that. We're just generally covering it. But I think it just, at first, when we all first because we all sort of arrived on the scene, we none of us sort of done it together, but we all sort of arrived on the scene at the same sort of time. And I think it sort of done all the police and the border forces head in. They weren't used to it.
Right. Well,
I've had border force try and grab. Yeah, I had border force try and grab my phone out of my hand when I'm filming and everything. It was new to be fair to the border force then. They didn't know what they was letting themselves in for once this was exposed.
Yes, I suppose that if they are just ordinary people working that job as well, aren't they? So you're going to get a mix. But and as
now they're in the papers every day.
Yeah, exactly. And then all their mates wondering, what the hell are you doing? But what's this new building that's being covertly or
that is the new facility, the intake facility for the illegal immigrants when they arrive. So you can see the size of it. You can see how many they're expecting to come over, and it's all high fenced off, so that nobody can see inside, no press can take pictures. They use the argument that it's for privacy, but it's more so people can't see what's going on.
Yeah. And I mean, this is quite a big. It's a few million quid, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, It's been reported there's £2 million that it costs on average.
And that's going to be used just for processing illegal immigrants, effectively.
Yeah, and this was put in place long before Priti Patel said she's going to start pushing them back.
Yeah. So I mean, it
So,
seems that they're building permanent and expensive infrastructure for a reason, aren't they? Why would they? They obviously intend to keep doing this.
oh yeah, exactly. This is what frustrates me when I'm and myself and others are down at the docks and stuff. Granted, I'm not there as much these times because it's just get too much hassle from everyone. But I used to get frustrated about it is because Patel would put out something saying, "Oh, we're going to get back and we're going to push back and we're going to do deportations," and then I'm standing at the docks watching them build a new facility that's like 3 times the size of the last one, and I'm thinking, is it really?
Yeah.
It's really frustrating because obviously people believe her as well.
Yes, I don't know why. I don't know why they do, but they do, or some people do anyway. I suppose. I mean, this is the other thing. It's politically partisan, isn't it? I mean, I think a lot of people that vote for the Tory party expect that they are doing what they think Tories would want to do, which is conserve, and
Yeah.
I mean they're not. It's quite obvious they're not. So yeah, they're just being lied to by their own politicians. So once people have arrived and they go through this, I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands now, and they say 20,000 in a year, then they all have to be presumably housed, put up in 4-star hotels or well, in hotels. Let's just say that. But there's reports of 4-star hotels. Does that happen pretty much? They just get processed and then moved on, do they? Is that your knowledge?
Yeah, they usually get processed, taken onto a coach. When I say processed, it's just more they well, at first they arrest them for entering the UK illegally, then they claim asylum, and then they get given whatever they need. Like for instance, if they need new clothing because they're wet or food, or for instance, they get it. And then once they're sort of they've got as much information out of them as they can from the scene, sort of, they load them onto coaches, take them to hotels all over the country, and then from there they just sort of stay there until they get put into council homes and none get deported, and that's just what happens every day, really.
I'm not alone, I know, in just being so frustrated that so many. It's the unchecked, the volume, the mass of people that are coming here, and of course probably many of which can't speak English, don't have any skills, and can't really contribute to the country either. Which is anyway, that's my frustration. It's not really something you can answer, but so how are you? How do you see this going forwards? Are you just going to keep covering this, or have you got? Do you get any support from MPs, local MPs, or MPs?
Oh no.
No.
When we had the protest in Dover, the Dover MP Natalie Elphike, which is actually a Conservative MP, told us we're not welcome on the same day that the Border Force welcomed in 200 illegal immigrants.
So that's right.
We have no support like that. But for your other question of where do I see it going, it's just going to escalate. It's just going to be one of those problems until the government changes. It's going to escalate and escalate and escalate.
Yeah. I mean,
there's no deterrent in place whatsoever, and the world knows it's an easy ride across the channel for whatever you need. If you're living in France in a tent and someone says all you got to do is get across a dinghy and you're going to get yourself in a hotel and eventually a home, they're going to do it.
Yeah, we all would, wouldn't we? I mean,
exactly.
Just any of us would. It makes perfect sense. Really, in that sense, you can't blame them. They're just doing what they want.
This is where the incentives need to be removed. That's the thing. Yeah. I always get accused of hating these people. I don't hate these people. I just don't trust them because I don't know who they are.
Yeah, and also we've got massive waiting lists for doctors, surgeries, NHS. We haven't got enough schools.
Just under 1.5 million waiting on social housing. We've got like 6,000 homeless veterans. Not to mention like something like 1.6 million using food banks and stuff. The country's in an absolute dire mess, and they're just importing more people. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, it's interesting as well, as you say, that the MPs are sort of distancing themselves from you. I mean, and especially a local Tory MP. I think she needs another name check. What was her name again?
Natalie Elphike, I think.
Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Anybody locally should be aware of that. That whatever Priti Patel is saying, her local colleague on the ground wants nothing to do with the people that are actually trying to highlight the problem. On that point, excuse me, I know that recently you've been the target of an organisation which I know something of, called Hope Not Hate, which is probably the most ironically named.
Oh, they're big brands, they are.
Well, I mean, I've seen them in action. I mean, they are to be called Hope Not Hate is so ironic, because they seem to me to be anything but that sort of type of. It doesn't seem to describe them very well. So they're like a pressure group, are they?
They claim to be a charity that sort of stumps online hate and blah 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 blah. But in reality, they just tarnish people as far right and try and silence them with any views that they don't agree with.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the reality of what they do. But they're a registered charity and they get away with it, and that's what happened. They've done it to so many people.
Yeah, and I mean, and of course, that's how you shut people down nowadays, isn't it? You either call them.
I went on Talk Radio, didn't I? That was the thing. That's what triggered them the most. I went on to Talk Radio to talk to, I think it was Kevin. I can't remember his name now.
Kevin Sullivan?
Yeah, that's the one. Kev O'Sullivan, yeah. Kev O'Sullivan. And then, yeah, nice one. And then they put a letter to Talk Radio trying to get them to put out that I was a far right activist, because they didn't like that Talk Radio introduced me as a social commentator.
Yeah. Well, of course. Well, they know that words matter, and if they can tarnish you in the least, then they know that people like spineless people that should know better, MPs and the like, will not want to be associated because they're scared of being called names themselves. You would think people that were members of Parliament would have a bigger spine than that, but few of them do nowadays, unfortunately.
That's the problem.
Well, I know, Steve, I know that you've had a very long day. I mean, I do feel for you, and when you texted me earlier to say that you were off to court today, and the fact that you haven't got the result, which I think you should have got, is very annoying and frustrating. I'm sure that if you did decide to appeal it and you needed to raise some funds, I would think that there would be plenty of people out there who would be happy to help to contribute. I know we've not discussed that. You've not asked me to say that, but I'm sure that you'd make that. Well, I hope you would make it clear that if you did need some financial help to fight this at appeal, I know you've got to think about it, because it's not as simple as we all think. There's repercussions, etc. So, but I don't want to take up too much of your time this evening. It's 9:10 now, and you've been, as I say, in court and having to deal with other stuff in life. So, is there any? How do people follow you on social media? What's your current social media addresses, profile, etc.?
Oh, I'm Steve Law's Report on Twitter, and thanks for having me on, by the way. I do appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming.
I would have spoken for more, but obviously a bit of a long day, so we can always do this another time.
Fine, no, absolutely, I'd love to.
Yeah, as I was saying, Steve Law's Report. Every other thing that I'm on's just my name, Steve Laws. I'm not very original with usernames, if I'm honest. I'm a bit lazy. I just put my name. But looking back on it, I probably shouldn't have.
Well, there's a reason why my name's not on this. But I mean, at some point, I think if you're going to be serious about trying to do something, you have to put your name against it. I suspect. For the little thing that I'm doing, which is just talking to people, I think I'm just going to have to put my name against it as well in due course. But yeah, I'm currently one of the many anonymous people on the internet. So Steve Law's Report, and you're on Twitter. You've got your website. Was that stevelawsreport.com, did you say?
.co.uk, yeah. It's all.
Okay.
Everything's just my name. It's easier, ain't it?
Fine. So if you Google you or DuckDuckGo, you should find contacts. I know you can be contacted through the website, and also I would recommend anybody to follow Steve on Twitter as well. Doing a great job together with a handful of other people, and not getting much help from Priti Patel or the rest of the Conservative Party, who keep promising to limit immigration and promise at every election to do that, and then do the exact opposite. So thank you for what I think is a heroic effort. You're putting yourself out there. You're putting yourself in harm's way in terms of these various organisations trying to do you down, and obviously you've put somebody's nose out of joint in government, which is, I suspect, why you're getting the attention you're getting at the moment from Her Majesty's legal system. But thank you very much for joining me. I hope we can talk again. So if ever you want to talk, then give me a shout. Otherwise, I'll make a diary note to perhaps contact you in a couple of months or whatever, and we could perhaps have a longer discussion about this. And if anybody has any questions, please put them in the comments, and I will save them up for then. Steve, thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate what you're doing. I'm sure this will be a popular podcast, especially because normally my podcasts go on for hours. So most people say, for God's sake, make them shorter. So it's probably good in this case that you haven't got so much time. Thanks very much, Steve. Appreciate it. And hopefully we'll speak again in a few months' time. Yeah,
thanks, Matt. I do appreciate you having me on. And we'll definitely catch up again, 100%. It's just you caught me at a bad couple of days, if I'm honest with you.
Totally understand. That's much appreciated.